What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And TrueMark Financial Credit Union, head on over to any one of their 24 branch locations or TrueMark.com/PHLY 24/7 to get started today. Happy Monday to you. A happy Victory Monday for the Birds once again. The defense. We're going to talk baseball, obviously, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't start with the Eagles just for a moment to talk about the good and the bad. The good, my goodness, the defense was unbelievable. The Detroit Lions, who came into this game averaging well over 30 points per game, scored 9. And quite frankly, that wasn't the most impressive thing. The most impressive thing to me, 3 for 13 on third down, 0 for 5 on fourth down. They were 3 for 18 in conversion pickups. Just an unbelievable performance from the Eagles defense. Jalen Phillips' first step is incredible. I thought Nakobe Dean was excellent. I thought Jordan Davis was excellent. Just really an overall great game. I got to even give credit to like Adoree Jackson, who got beat a couple times early and really stepped up later in the game. I thought just as a collective effort, especially considering how ineffective the offense was for a majority of the game, just an unbelievable performance from the Eagles defense. For the second consecutive week, they have given up 9 and 7 in the last 2 weeks, which is great considering your offense has only scored 26 points in the last 2 weeks. But this defense just has been stifling. So credit to Vic Fangio's unit for another important performance. And then the bad, of course, we find out today that Lane Johnson will miss several weeks with a Lisfranc injury. It is reported that it is not considered season ending, but I mean, that's your stalwart. That's your right tackle. That's the guy that's been there for pretty much every snap of every game for the last couple of years. Has been really banged up this year, but the Lisfranc injury, I think, is a big one. I mean, Fred Johnson's played well in his stead, but you know, I think that obviously losing your best offensive tackle, your best offensive lineman at times, is certainly concerning. That's our Eagles talk for the day. We'll do more of it on Philadelphia. The Eagles come your way at 2. I know Anthony and Andrew Frazier, who's producing today's show, and VG talked extensively about it this morning. Check out their show. Andrew, first of all, it's good to have you back, buddy. I know that you guys talked extensively about it, but my God, what a performance from that defense last night.
Oh, man. Best defense in the league by far. I don't think any other defense compares. To take the Lions, who were ranked 3rd overall in total points, and to keep them to 9 points, that's like pitching a shutout in a game. Well, you know, it was just crazy work.
And it was funny too. Like, how many times was Dan Campbell going to line up for it on fourth down, and you know, in fairly plus territory, right? On you know, somewhere between the 50 and the 40, and the Eagles stuffed them time and time again. Nakobe Dean shot a gap the one time and obliterated David Montgomery and pushed him right back into Jared Goff. And I mean, I thought like the stat I saw yesterday was Goff becomes the Eagles become the first defense ever to hold a quarterback under 40% completion percentage when he was over 70 for the season.
It's insane.
That's how good they were.
I can't talk about Nakobe Dean right now because if I do, I'm going to use some dirty words, and I don't want to get in trouble. But that dude was lights out, and to come back after that injury, where everyone was like, "Oh, I don't know if he's going to get back here this season. I don't know when he's going to be, going to get there. What's his timeline?" And then he comes back the last 2 games, and especially this one. I mean, he was following Williams on routes, man. He was just insane. Jalen Phillips,
he stuck stride for stride with Jahmyr Gibbs on that wheel route late in the game.
Yeah,
I mean. The Nakobe Dean coming back from the injury has been huge. Getting Jalen Phillips has been huge. Zach Bond continues to play at a high level. Quinyon is, my God, he might be a top 5 corner in the league already.
Oh, yeah, easy.
I mean, you know, I think PS2 is the gold standard of cornerbacks, but like Quinyon's in that next tier under him.
Oh, 100%.
Which is not a bad place to be in year 2.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable defensive performance, especially considering the fact that the offense really didn't provide anything. As I said, we'll talk more about that on the Eagles show today. I know VG and Andrew and Anthony talked a lot about it this morning. Let's get into the Phillies conversation. Here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Today is Cristopher Sanchez Appreciation Day. And the reason that we're doing it today was because we didn't get to it on Friday. But I wanted to dedicate a good chunk of time to Cristopher Sanchez. We've talked extensively about Cristopher Sanchez over the last 2 seasons. But I think when you get into the numbers and you start breaking down the things that Cristopher Sanchez has done over the last 2 years and over the last year specifically, and then you get into what Cristopher Sanchez did after Zach Wheeler's injury, I'm not sure outside of Philadelphia, we understood how valued Cristopher Sanchez was until we saw the Cy Young voting. We saw Cristopher Sanchez get all 32nd place votes for a reason, because he was that good. And if it weren't for Paul Skeens' unbelievable season, Cristopher Sanchez had a very viable opportunity to win a Cy Young Award. He was that dominant all season long. So here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We're going to do Cristopher Sanchez Appreciation Day today to start off the show. We're also going to get into Matt Gelb's report on the interest that may be generating between some of the Phillies' left-handed relievers, and we'll talk about which one makes the most sense if they were to make a trade. Now, Matt wasn't saying they're definitively going to make a trade, but they were saying that there was interest in all three guys. Kind of rank which ones make the most sense. And then I want to talk about Rangers' free agent value, because we talked on Friday about what Kyle Schwarber brought to the free agent pool. I wanted to continue on that article that was written by Mike Petriello on Friday, that was kind of laying out the elite attributes of the different free agents, and Rangers' name came up a couple of different times. We'll do that, and of course, we'll end today's show with some news and notes around Major League Baseball, where Josh Naylor is the big name to re-sign. He re-signed in Seattle. We'll talk about that coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. What's up, everybody? Tyler Zula here. Andrew Frazier producing and co-hosting. You saw him earlier. And you hanging out in the chat. Thanks so much for being here today. Let's start with Cristopher Sanchez Appreciation Day, because when I started to talk about Cristopher Sanchez and break down the numbers, we know what he does well. The strikeout rates were a career high. The innings pitched was a career high. The changeup is devastating. The value of Cristopher Sanchez's contract is unbelievable. But I started to dive deeper into the changeup specifically, and that's kind of where I wanted to start today, was with Cristopher Sanchez's changeup. We've talked a ton about it over the last two seasons, and really I think this past season was when it made its mark at the national level. We knew locally how good this pitch was over the last 2+ seasons. But I think nationally, he really started to garner attention, even if he wasn't an all-star. But I think a lot of the people that cover the sport nationally started to really give him his flowers because of the changeup, because of the consistency, because of the fact that pretty much every start you were getting ace-level performances from Cristopher Sanchez. And I think it finally got into perspective of this individual pitch. Hitters know it's coming. You get down in the count, 0-1, 0-2, 1-2, especially as a right-handed hitter, you know you're getting this pitch not just once, but several times for the remainder of the at-bat, and you still can't hit it. This year, Cristopher Sanchez threw 1,083 changeups. It's the most in any pitcher has thrown a changeup this season. In fact, it was nearly 100 more than Kyle Hendricks, who finished second with 987. There were 42 qualified pitchers this year to throw the prerequisite amount of changeups, which was to say 406 was the fewest amount of changeups thrown amongst qualified changeup pitchers. That's to give you context of the numbers that I'm about to provide you. Cristopher Sanchez this year, opponents hit 170 off of the changeup, which was third best amongst qualified hitters. His .243 slug was fourth best. He had a 45.1% whiff rate, which was third best. His 40.9% strikeout rate, second best. 29.8% put away rate was the best in baseball. And his 25.8% hard hit percentage was eighth. That's the worst of these categories that I just gave you. And I just gave you average, slug, whiff rate, K rate, put away, hard hit. That's 6 different categories. And the worst that he finished on that individual pitch among qualified pitchers was 8th. Then you get into run value. His 18 run value on the changeup was tied for second. A lot of these categories, the only pitcher or one of the few pitchers that finished ahead of him was Tarik Skubal, who is filthy in his own right and has just won back-to-back Cy Youngs in the American League. And Tarik Skubal said that Sunday night that they did Sunday Night Baseball, the night after he and Wheeler dealt and then Sanchez pitched on Sunday Night Baseball, they interviewed Tarik Skubal, and Tarik Skubal said his changeup is as good or if not better than mine. And that puts it into a conversation, into context, where you said, we know locally it's good, but the best pitcher in the American League just said, hey man, his pitch is just as good as mine, if not better. That changeup is devastating. It comes from elite level arm action. It comes from slotting. It comes from tunneling. It comes from the extension that Cristopher Sanchez gets, A, just by sheerly being tall, and B, by being the guy who can barrel down the mound because of that length, because of that stride. It feels like he's on top of you already by the time he releases the ball. And then when his arm slot, his release point is in the same exact spot for the fastball or for the sinker that it is with the changeup, it doesn't necessarily matter when he's going to pull the string on you. It's just a matter of, are you sitting changeup and can you pick it up out of the hand? Because you could, as we've seen, like he threw 1,083 changeups. At some point, especially right-handed hitters are going to go, okay, I'm sitting changeup, and if he beats me with the fastball, he beats me with the fastball. But if I'm going to sit changeup, that's how I read and react on that one pitch. And he's still getting weak contact. He's getting topped contact. He's getting swing and miss stuff. He's eliminating hard hit contact. And because that pitch is so effective, that's why his ground ball rates are so high, because he's a sinker changeup pitcher with a slider mix. And when you look at his heat maps, it's down, 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 down. That's intentional. Now, we talked early in the season and throughout the season that his heightened velocity allows him to pitch up in the zone, and he did it a little bit more this year than ever before because he was throwing 96, 97, 98. But his bread and butter is down and away to righties and down and away with the slider to lefties. And the changeup fastball combination is where he makes his mark. Teams try to go with right-handed heavy lineups against him all year. And it makes sense. You do that lefty-righty matchup thing. But your best pitch, Cristopher Sanchez's best pitch, is almost matchup proof because it's the right-handed neutralizer. You know, if his best pitch was his slider, you would say, yeah, he's really good against lefties. He needs that out pitch against righties. His slider's good. It's his worst pitch, but it's good. His sinker changeup combo makes him right-handed proof almost. And it's why he's so devastatingly effective against right-handed hitters. And there you see his numbers all season long. I mean, this was a Cy Young caliber elite level performance all season long from Cristopher Sanchez. A 2.5 ERA. First time again, over 200 innings pitched. First time again, over 200 strikeouts. A 1.064 whip. You see all the red on his Baseball Savant page there. Ground ball rates in the 95th percentile. Extension in the 90th percentile. Kept the barrel rates low. Kept the walk rate low. Strikeout rates were good. Whiff and chase rates were elite. And his expected ERA is right on cue with where his ERA was, and it's why he finished second in the Cy Young voting. This was a national celebration year for Cristopher Sanchez. Everything that we knew locally from a season ago, everything that like real baseball nerds that maybe not live in this city knew from a season ago, the general populace of Major League Baseball fans got to see it for the first time this year. And not only got to see it for the first time this year in the regular season, but got to see it for the first time this year in the postseason as well, which is where we get to Cristopher Sanchez's really big step up in 2025. Which is where we get to our big deal segment of the day, which is brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Jeep. If you're looking for a Jeep or Ram truck, there's only one dealership in South Jersey that's been the market leader since 1967. That's our friends over at cherryhilljeep.com. They've got you covered with not only the best selection, but the best prices as well. Our big deal segment of the day is specifically about Cristopher Sanchez in the post-Zach Wheeler portion of the season. Zach Wheeler's final start was on August 15th. Cristopher Sanchez's next start was on August 19th. Here's Sanchez's numbers from August 19th through the remainder of the season, including the 2 postseason starts. He made 10 starts, 2 postseason starts. He threw 63 1/3 innings. He was well above a strikeout per inning pitched at 68. Just 11 walks over that time. Pair that with the 52 hits, and he gave up less than 1 base runner per inning pitched at a 0.998 whip. His 2.56 ERA was right on cue with where he was all season long, and he had a 6.18 strikeout to walk ratio at that point to the end of the season. Cristopher Sanchez, when it mattered most, when you lost the ace of the staff in Zach Wheeler, became the ace of the staff. Now, this is not to say that he wasn't pitching like an ace prior to that point. He would have been the ace on, like, I don't know, 25 of the 29 other staffs, right? You think about Skubal, Crochet, Skeens. That's pretty much it in terms of dominance this season. He would have been the ace on basically every other staff, but emerged as the Phillies' ace and pitched well into the postseason. And in those two starts was good, was really, really good. And in fact, was held under the finest of microscopes because of the fact that the Phillies' offense didn't provide him anything. Got out of jams when they needed him to. Gave you 13 good innings of 3-run ball over 2 starts in the postseason. They didn't win either of the starts because the offense was lifeless. It wasn't Cristopher Sanchez's fault. He was absolutely locked in from the time that really from the whole season, but from the time that Zach Wheeler went down and pitched his final game on August 15th, Cristopher Sanchez dialed it up even another notch further and became the ace of the staff. Whatever happens with Zach Wheeler in terms of does he pitch again in 26? How much longer does he pitch after 2026 when his contract is up? Whatever happens with Zach Wheeler, I know the Phillies are in good hands in terms of the top of their rotation because Cristopher Sanchez is there to prove it. Jesus Luzardo, I hope, gets extended and I think is a really legitimate number 2 and pitched like it for a majority of the season. I hope Zach Wheeler is able to come back healthy and give you something in 2026. I know that Ranger Suárez likely is gone, and you have to replace those 170 innings somehow in 2026. But I know for a fact at the top of the rotation, Cristopher Sanchez has that secured because of the guy that he has become. And that's our big deal segment of the day. It's brought to you by our friends over at Cherry Hill Jeep. Again, head on over to cherryhilljeep.com, shop 24/7 for the best selection and best prices. Want to welcome back Andrew Frazier into this portion of the program. Andrew, it seemed like you and I were on the air basically every time he pitched, the day after or a few days after. And a lot of the things that I just said today have been everything that we've said over the course of the year.
Of course.
This dude is unbelievable. How good he has become as a mature, level-headed, top-of-the-rotation type of starter. When we watched him in 23, you saw glimpses of a guy who probably could have been like a 2 or a 3.
Sure.
The last 2 seasons, I've seen a guy who consistently has been a 1. Unbelievable stuff from Cristopher Sanchez.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable stuff. When he first came here to the team, you didn't really expect much of him. You thought he was just more of like an innings eater who's going to be there to kind of supplement when you have to have that day where you don't have one of your guys going. He's going to be there and kind of get you through a game. Last year, he really started to show flashes that he was something special, something really good.
Yep.
And then this year, he just solidified it. And just like you kind of said, the timeline that you said, he great to start the season, but really just came into his own once Wheeler went down and just took on that role of the ace. And we have been in lockstep the entire season about, wow, we cannot believe what Cristopher Sanchez is doing and the development that we have seen with this guy being here in Philadelphia. And, he's got a really great, bright future. We don't know what the situation is going to be with Wheeler going into next year. If he's going to play at all, or we're going to see him halfway through the season, what that is going to look like. But it's great to know that you have Sanchez there to count on regardless. And then hopefully you have Jesus there as well as that number 2, like you were saying. But it's really nice knowing that you have Sanchez.
We're going to talk more about Cristopher Sanchez because I know the comment was brought up in the chat about the contract. And I think it was Futz who said, offer him every possible endorsement to make up for the contract.
Yeah.
We're going to talk on the other side, Andrew, about the value of the contract. Because, you can put it into a computer-generated number and it spits out a number for you. I don't know if that means it's 1 for 1. But I promise you, the computer-generated number that I found is a whole heck of a lot higher than what his contract dictates over the last 2 seasons.
Really?
We'll talk about it more on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, so you got one more pro football game on this week's slate tonight. You've also got pro hoops, college hoops, hockey coming into play. And of course, it's never too early to start thinking about next week's slate of football. And if you call yourself that sports fan, you have to get Xfinity, because with Xfinity, you get all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. And the way that you watch, it becomes next level. See, it's the perfect fan flex. So you get all the action right there in your living room. Listen, I was down at the game last night, and I had a great time. But I got to tell you, it was cold. And if you don't want to be cold like I was, sitting there with your feet freezing, you can do it right there from your living room with crystal clear optics and 4K enhanced sound with our friends over at Xfinity. And then you don't have to wait in the parking lot for half an hour after the game ends. You just go to bed at midnight when the game ended, because it was a long game last night. And listen, you can sometimes watch 4 games at once, because why not? On top of that, you get some real-time notifications and live stats right there on your TV. It is the perfect fan flex every single time. So next game day, make sure the big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365. Lines change all the time, including, we'll talk about last night's game again for a second. The live lines on the over, the total, came way down because of how good your hometown defense was and the fact that both offenses really kind of were sputtering for a majority of the game. You could have gotten in on different lines as they change. They're the live in-game pioneers with Bet365. And how about this? Right now, new users, sign up and use that promo code PHLY365 at the bottom of your screen. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. You find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You were at the game last night?
I was.
Man, lucky you.
So I have not been to a game since the Eagles-Packers in 23 or 22, I think it was.
Was that the game where they dominated the run?
So that was the game
Aaron
that
Rodgers got hurt or something?
Rodgers started, got hurt.
Yeah.
Jordan Love came in, and Love actually played really, really well.
I remember, yeah. But the Eagles' run game was just incredible.
Yeah, I think that Hurts played really well that night. Run game was good.
300 some yards on the ground.
Yeah, it was a good win. It was a high scoring win. I think it was I'm gonna say maybe almost 70 points combined were scored.
Yeah.
Not quite the same game as last night. So yeah, we were 2 rows from the top, and I'm usually. The good thing about being up there is you are sometimes shaded from the elements.
Sure.
You got the overhang and the concrete walls behind you. The problem is when the wind goes east-west like it did last night.
Whipped.
You got no chance.
Yeah.
Like when it goes north-south, up the 95 corridor, you're pretty protected. Last night I was wearing sunglasses at 10 o'clock at night because the wind was just hitting me in the face so much.
Oh, I'm sure.
That, you get the eye start burning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the first game I was at in quite some time.
Wow. I was at a game one time with my dad in a playoff game. It was the one where we played the Seahawks, and it was the one Carson Wentz gets hurt.
Yes,
because he gets speared. And that game, I don't know what the temperature was, but it was so freezing that I had bibs on. I had 3 jackets on, a sweatshirt on, hats, everything, and gloves, and I was still cold. Cold to the bone, that's a tough
you ever have
time.
one of those games? I didn't do it last night because I got home late. I didn't want to wake anybody up. But there's been times before where you get home and you just have to fill the bathtub up and just stand in it.
Oh yeah,
because your feet are like icicles.
Yeah, hot shower.
Yeah,
oh, of course, man. Yeah,
yeah. It was cold last night. It probably wasn't the coldest game I was at, but it was definitely the windiest game I was at.
Yeah, you couldn't really tell on the TV how windy it really was.
Yeah.
But they would show the crowd at points, and you would see the flags, and you're like, oh yeah, there's wind.
And I was you're watching the punts go up, and then Braden Mann would punt one, and you go, wow, he boomed that. Yeah. And then the next one would tumble,
just go crazy.
Yeah, it was the kicking game was rough. I get why they went for it on 4th down so much. Now Dan Campbell maybe a little overly aggressive.
Yeah,
but it's Dan Campbell, kind of come to expect it.
It's kind of his forte.
All right, let's get back to this Cristopher Sanchez conversation for just a second. I want to talk about the value of his contract because I think it just gets better and better and better as his tenure goes on and he continues to pitch as well as he did. So I went back and I looked at FanGraphs' value of contracts. And basically what they do is they take the WAR of the player and a couple other different stats, and it spits out a monetary value of what the player would be worth in free agency over the time period that you select. So what I did, Andrew, was I selected 2023 through 2025. Because the reason I went with 23 was because I wanted to add in that like good year to go with the other 2 great years to see if it would bring him down a ton.
Okay.
And unsurprisingly, it did bring him down a little bit, but I'll get to the 24 and 25 in just a moment. So since 2023, which Cristopher Sanchez, by the way, went 3-5 in 19 appearances with a 3.44 ERA. ERA-wise, good year, made 19 appearances. Not a bad year, but it was like not the special season that we've seen from Sanchez over the last 2 seasons. In that time, he is, including 23, is 4th in WAR among starting pitchers. Zach Wheeler, Tarek Skubal, Logan Webb are the only ones better than Cristopher Sanchez's 12.8 WAR. His 3.01 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, is 8th. Blake Snell, Cole Reagans, Logan Webb, Paul Skeens, Chris Sale, Garrett Crochet, Tarek Skubal. You're going to hear Skeens and Skubal and Crochet a lot in the next couple because they're elite. But the fielding independent pitching thing is incredible considering how heavy, we talked about the sinker changeup mix, how heavy he is on ground ball reliance, which then turns into fielder reliance. The reason that his FIP is so good is because even though they are offenses are putting the ball in play and on the ground a good bit, it's weak contact. It continues to be weak contact. He has a 57.7% ground ball rate, which is 3rd best over that time. Only Jose Soriano and Andre Palante have a better ground ball rate. And Soriano's was really dictated by 2023 and 2024. It wasn't as good this season. When you put the ball on the ground as much as he does, you are relying on your infield defense. But when guys aren't hitting the ball hard or they're hitting routine ground balls because you're pitching well, that's how your FIP stays as active as it is and as low as it is, despite the fact that you are a heavy ground ball pitcher. All of this is including the fact that good, not great 2023 negatively skews 24 and 25. If you take 23 out of the equation and only focus on 24 and 25, his WAR gets to the 2nd best. Only Tarek Skubal, back-to-back Cy Young winner, has more. The FIP goes down to 2.76. Again, Tarek Skubal is better. He has a 57.8% ground ball rate. Only Framber Valdez is higher. His 383 and 2/3 innings pitched are the 3rd most in baseball. Want to take a guess who's on that list, Andrew?
Who could it be? Is it Cristopher Sanchez?
And Tarek Skubal. And Logan Webb, who all he does is like go out there and like chat it up and eat innings, right? But all of those things, and by the way, he had a 78.5% left on base percentage, which like is well above average as well. So all of those things get into the value of Cristopher Sanchez's contract, which still has 2 years left, right? 26, 27, 3 years left, and then a club option of $15 and $16 million in 29 and 30, which if he's pitching as well as he is, you might as well just go pick those club option years up now. Because 15 and 16 in 29 and 30 is going to be a steal compared to what some pitchers are making. Compared to what pitchers are making now, 15 and 16 is a steal. But think about 4 years from now, like the value just continues to get better and better. So on the whole, which again, almost assuredly they're going to pick up those 2 years, it's a 6-year, $53.5 million contract.
Wow.
Which comes out to be just about $9 million per season on average.
That's, yeah.
First of all, Cristopher Sanchez should fire his agent.
Yes, I agree.
Second of all, what a steal of a contract for the Phillies. I mean, when you think about the last 2 years alone, which obviously the extension didn't come into play until this year, but based on the way that the extension was prorated, he's earned about $4 million in the last 2 seasons. Fangraphs has him valued. Want to take a guess at what over the last 2 seasons, Andrew, Fangraph has him valued at?
Is this by year?
Per total, in terms of monetary value. He made about 4. What do you think his value was?
Oh, man. It's got to be like, obviously, I couldn't even, 25?
88.4.
Wow. Yeah, I'm bad with numbers like that.
It's a 2,200% return on investment compared to what he made. If he were to sign a free agent contract today, Fangraphs thinks he's worth $88 million over 2 seasons. Now, I don't think he gets 44 a year, but he might get 35 a year for 7 seasons. Right? He probably gets over $200 million total. He's on pace to make $53.5 million over the course of 6 seasons.
That's absurd.
Fangraphs has him valued at 88 for the last 2. That's how good Cristopher Sanchez. By the way, that value among starting pitchers, just second in baseball. Once again, let's take a guess who number 1 is. Tarek Skubal, $100.8 million. By the way, only 8 position players are valued greater than that $88 million. Here's the list. Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt, Cal Raleigh, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Gunnar Henderson. So based on return on investment alone, Cristopher Sanchez is not just one of the best value contracts amongst pitchers. He's not just one of the best value contracts amongst baseball. Cristopher Sanchez is one of the best value contracts in professional sports. $53.5 million over 6 seasons for what you've gotten in the first 2, even if it's 80% of that, is an utter steal for Cristopher Sanchez and the value that he brings to the Phillies, especially with the uncertainty of the starting rotation after next season. This guy is a godsend to their payroll and to the value of their starting rotation. That's how good that he was. We just spent a half an hour talking about one guy. I could spend 4 hours talking about this dude.
Oh, sure. Easy.
We're going to turn our attention elsewhere because we still have to talk about the report from Matt Gelb about left-handed bullpen arms. I do want to talk about Ranger Suárez. We'll talk about some of the other contracts around baseball. But today was Cristopher Sanchez Appreciation Day, and I think rightfully so. The guy's unbelievable. We'll do more on the other side. Again, we'll talk about those 3 lefties. We're going to rank them in order that we think they may get traded or could get traded if the trade scenarios do open up. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, once again, let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Live lines change all the time, and if you wanted to get in, let's say take your pro hockey team on Saturday, for example. They were, a 1.5 dogs on the puck line. They ended up losing by 4. And all you had to do was jump in on the live line after it started to go the wrong way to get Dallas at, continued to, as the lines change. And in fact, with our friends over at Bet365, you wouldn't have even had to worry about the end of the game because there is early payout action in the NHL. If your team goes up by 3 goals at any point, which Dallas did about midway through the third period, you would have won. And you can do that through all NHL games this season as well. And how about this? New users right now, you get a great opportunity. Use the promo code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and you get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, so much more. You find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Cherry Hill Jeep, because if you're looking for the best Jeep or Ram truck, there's only one place in South Jersey that's not only serving up the best selection, but the best prices as well. It's our friends over at cherryhilljeep.com. They've been the market leader since 1967 for a reason. You can slide into a 2025 Jeep Wrangler this month for as low as $289 a month, and every Wrangler delivers strong drivetrains, innovative engineering, and of course quality components that underpin this icon's legendary heritage. Or you can pull away in the most luxurious and functional SUV, the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, which also includes a true zero offer. So stop in today, tell them that we here at PHLY sent you, and receive $1,000 off any new car and an additional $2,000 for your trade-in. I know people buy Jeeps and Ram trucks elsewhere. I just don't know why. Head on over to cherryhilljeep.com 24/7 or across all bridges at their Cherry Hill location. It's an incredible complex. You can shop cherryhilljeep.com 24/7. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody in the chat, so I want to do that now. Hello to Ray Schumacher, Futz, Stephen Paul, Provolone John, Broad Street Bullies. Who else was here earlier that I didn't get a chance to mention just yet? Wilford Brimley's back. What's up, Wilford? Who else is here? Well, everybody that's here, thank you so much for being a part of today's chat. If I didn't mention you, I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you're here and hanging out with us here on this afternoon. All right, let's get to this Matt Gelb article here, or this Matt Gelb report, I should say, that was followed up by an article on The Athletic. And Matt reports this. Give me 1 second. I want to read it for you word for word in his piece. The Phillies, this is a quote, the Phillies have fielded steady interest in all three of their left-handed relievers since the offseason began, Major League sources said, and it could nudge them towards a trade. The free agent market for lefty relievers is not robust. Some of the best available arms include Gregory Soto, Drew Pomeranz, and Hobie Milner. It's why teams have targeted the Phillies. They have Jose Alvarado signed for $9 million in 2026, Matt Strahm for $7.5 million, and Tanner Banks projected to make about $1 million in his first year of salary arbitration. Now, what up, Rich? Hello to you too. I will say this. This doesn't necessarily mean that the Phillies are going to trade one of their three lefties. It is a luxury to have three lefties in your bullpen. And I think it's a luxury to have three lefties that, to me, fill three very different roles. I think Matt Strahm is very excellent. We're going to talk about what they do well and their numbers in just a little bit. I think Matt Strahm is very excellent in clean inning work in the 7th and 8th innings. I think he challenges hitters. He pitches with moxie. I think there's times where sometimes his command got away from him last year, and we'll talk more about that. But I think Matt Strahm has been an incredible piece to this Phillies bullpen over the last couple of seasons. Tanner Banks did an unbelievable job of elevating his role and stepping up into high leverage situations when we really didn't expect him to. And I think he did a nice job as well. And then Jose Alvarado, if he can come back and be 85 or 90% of the guy that you saw at the beginning of last season, the velocity's back. I think that I think that the value in Alvarado being a high leverage back end of the bullpen lefty, pairing him with Duran, I think that, the Phillies have a luxury right now with three lefties who fill three very different roles. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're definitely going to trade one, but if you have the upper hand in the trade market, of course you're going to field calls. You're going to see maybe I can get a higher leverage prospect in return that, maybe I wouldn't have at the trade deadline or last offseason. So, A, I don't know if that necessarily means they are going to facilitate a trade. And B, the other thing too, I do believe it's interesting given that two of them, Alvarado and Strahm, are on the final years of their deals. So let's talk about all three guys and then rank what I believe and what you think is the likelihood that maybe these three guys get traded. Let's start with Jose Alvarado. Obviously, the middle of the season was marred with that 80-game suspension for PED use, or the PED policy, I should say. He was dominant prior to the suspension. The stuff wasn't the same. He ended up getting injured post that. He didn't really pitch much in his return. But I think even with the suspension and a certain level of unknown heading into 26, I do think that the Phillies would like to keep their power arm in the bullpen, especially from the lefty side. You've got Duran as the power arm from the righty side. Alvarado is your lefty power arm that can come in and get you a big strikeout when you need it. So I think even with that, paired with the fact that the club pretty quickly picked up his $9 million club option, I envision him being the lefty setup man for Jhoan Duran in 2026. So without getting into the other two, I think Jose Alvarado is the least likely to get traded, because I think they want that power arm. And I know that they're going to have to deal with a potential contract extension or letting him walk at the deadline or in the offseason in 2027. I know that is on the horizon, but I think picking up the club option indicates to me that they want Jose Alvarado on the roster. So that brings me to Matt Strahm and Tanner Banks. So let's start with Strahm. Strahm had another successful year. It maybe wasn't as dominant as 2024 was because his ERA was unbelievable in 24, but he still did post a 2.8 ERA this season. Now, his whip rose almost 0.3 points, which was due in large part to the fact that last year he walked 11 guys, this year he walked 20 guys, and he also gave up 11 more hits. I don't think Strahm's command was as sharp this year as it was in 2024, but I do still think he is a super valuable member of this bullpen who has been for basically the last 3 seasons. He's set to make $7.5 million on the final year of his contract before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2027. Now, we talked about Cristopher Sanchez's value, which was significantly higher than his actual contract. Matt Strahm's was the same. In the last 2 seasons, he's made $15 million. Fangraphs values him at $28.7 million, which means Fangraphs' evaluation of him based on his WAR and his metrics is that he's almost double as good as what his contract indicates. Now, you're not going to pay a reliever $15 million a season, but at least not a middle reliever. You might pay a high-end closer that, but you're not going to pay a middle reliever $15 million a season. But I do think that tells you that the value of Matt Strahm is really significantly higher than what maybe a middle reliever could be. Then we get to Tanner Banks. Banks, to me, is coming off the best season of his career. He was entrusted with a much higher leverage role because of that Alvarado suspension. And, I mean, I talked about him, Andrew, what did I talk about him? 10, 12 times this season? You know how much I love Tanner Banks, especially this year. He stepped up in a big way and got the Phillies out of a lot of jams. He saw 32 inherited runners this year. He had career highs in WHIP, walks per 9, strikeouts per 9, ERA+. He had a second-best career ERA, second-best hits per 9. I love Tanner Banks. The question is, do you think that Tanner Banks can continue to pitch at that level, especially considering he has a really team-friendly contract as he enters that first year of arbitration? He's expected to get somewhere between $1 and $1.25 million. He doesn't become an unrestricted free agent until his age 38 season. He doesn't become an unrestricted free agent until 2028. He still has 3 more years of arbitration. So, do you continue to keep him because of that contract, because of high productivity, or do you sell high knowing that it's quite a few years of team control, knowing that he's coming off the best year of his career? Do you sell high in maybe a little bit of a concern of does he bounce, does he kind of revert back to his career numbers, which are heading in the right direction over the last 2.5 seasons, but still are like, they're decent. But last year was by far, to me, his best season of his career. So, Andrew, given everything that I just laid out, curious your thoughts on these 3 guys and like the level of likelihood that you think they could be traded before I give you my rankings.
Individually or all 3?
I guess in terms of all 3.
High. I feel like 2 of the 3 that you just talked about are probably going to get moved or have the ability to get moved. I don't want to see Strahm wait with that contract being that it's up in 27. I don't want to see that sit here and him become an unrestricted free agent or restricted free agent. I'd like to see some value for him. I also Alvarado. Alvarado has been kind of an interesting character where like he gets injured a lot. We've had issues with him missing games, different things like that. I know he can be, a flamethrower, but I would also not be shocked if they can find a way to move him.
So I will say this. I think if of these 3 guys, I think the least likely to get traded is Alvarado.
The least?
Yes. And
because
the reason
of all that stuff?
Even with that stuff included. Yeah. And I know that he's on the final year of his deal. Even with that being said, I think that I don't think they would have been as swift to pick up a $9.5 million club option if they didn't value him in the bullpen next season. Now, that doesn't say that other teams don't value him, because I think everybody wants a hard-throwing lefty, a guy with wipeout stuff. I know the control stuff at times, like he gets a little erratic, he gets a little wild, but when Jose Alvarado is on, he's one of the more dominating relievers in baseball.
Yeah.
And has stretches of like 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time where he's nearly unhittable. Then he'll go a week or 2 with, heart palpitation type of performances.
Sure.
But I think the stuff is unquestionable. And again, I don't know exactly how he returns. He's pretty injured, injured pretty quickly after he returned to play. I don't know how he returns, but if he's a semblance of the guy we saw in the first 2 months of the season, that's an extremely valuable piece in your bullpen, especially if you can use him against the lefties in the 8th inning. Let's say you see lefties in the 8th and then Duran in the 9th. You're just getting flame on flame. I think that he, to me, would be the least likely to get moved. I think it comes down to Banks because teams would value the contract versus Strahm, who I think has now had a proven track record over the last 3 years of being a legitimate high-leverage lefty out of the bullpen. Pitches the 6th, pitches the 7th, can pitch the 8th, could give you a 9th inning if you wanted to give your closer a day off or 2. I think if it's between those two, I would say Matt Strahm is the most likely to get moved because of the contract.
Sure.
I think that Banks, while I spoke extremely highly of Banks this offseason or this whole season, there could be a regression.
Yeah.
I think that soft tossers, especially and bullpen guys in general, are year-to-year type of arms. I think there could be a regression. I hope there's not. And I think especially for a guy who's on arbitration for the next 4 years, that's valuable to a team that's going to probably spend the same amount of money, if not maybe a little bit more than they did last year. That's valuable to have a trusted reliever at $1.5 million. Even though I think Strahm has been as consistent as they possibly come for this bullpen over the last 3 years, I think if you said to me, pick one of those three guys that might be on the trade block, I think it's Matt Strahm.
Okay, fair enough.
Are you at Alvarado 1, or are you at
I don't really know who I value or where I would place them.
Let me flip it the other way. Who do you think is the most safe?
I'd like to say Tanner.
Because of the contract?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to say Tanner, and then I'd say those, and then the other two obviously would be the ones. And maybe I would go the same route as you, Strahm being 1 and Alvarado being 2.
Okay.
But I see them out of the 3.
I think Strahm, $7.5 million. He's about to be, I think he's 34 now, I want to say. Maybe turn 35 sometime during the season. I'm going to double check really quickly. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He just turned 34. His birthday was a couple days ago, actually. So he'll be 34
Strahm.
So he'll be 34 through the entirety of the 2026 season. I think between him being, but like, it's not like Tanner Banks is young. Tanner Banks, I believe, is 33. He may, in fact, also be 34. In fact, he's actually, I don't know, about 20 days older. Yeah. They're a couple of weeks apart. He was October of 91. So they're both going to be 34 for the bulk of the season.
Got to tell you, I'm going to miss his trading card game when there's a rain delay.
What, Matt Strahm?
Yeah.
It's one of the 3 or 4 things that they actually show. I've always said, like, if you start getting out of Phillies clubhouse and into Matt Strahm, the documentary about the vet,
yeah.
You're in for a long rain delay.
That's a long rain delay.
If they start playing the vet one, it's an hour.
Yeah, they should have just canceled the
game.
You're
like, the game's over. I'm not watching anymore.
Yeah.
Matt Strahm, I think, was a half an hour, so like you kind of got a little wiggle room there. But if they get out of Phillies clubhouse, you're sitting for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think Strahm would make the most sense out of this group in terms of a trade. And again, I don't know if that necessarily means that anybody gets traded. I think they value all 3 guys. I think there's a very realistic possibility that they just go, hey, we have 3 really good lefty relievers that we like, and we're going to go into the season with 3 really good lefty relievers.
Yeah.
And we can slot them however we want to slot them. If Matt's reporting, which I 100% trust, does come to fruition,
sure,
I think Strahm makes the most sense. All right, let's pause on the other side. We still have to talk about Ranger Suárez, who headlined a couple of different categories in that article that we discussed on Friday from Mike Petriello. We'll do that on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, I've been telling you about my hometown casino of choice, but how about the best app? It's the same place. It's the Parx Casino app, because whether your favorite team wins or not, there is always another way to win on the BetParx Casino online app. You can check out some of their great casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fireblaze Sky Queen, which is a BetParx exclusive. It's part of the reason as to why it's the only app that I would ever use to play my favorite casino games right there in the palm of my hand. I can play blackjack, which is my favorite, or you could play roulette, craps, baccarat, poker, online slots, and some incredible online slots based on your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Squid Game, Peaky Blinders, and so much more. You can do it all right from the palm of your hand. And new users right now get up to $1,000 back in casino bonus money if you're down in the first 24 hours. Head on over to betparx.com, download the app right now, and enjoy all of the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. Must be 21 in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParx. You love to play, you play to win, you bet BetParx. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, you know that overwhelming feeling, right? When you walk into the jewelry store, you're thinking about popping the question to your partner, your special someone, and you just get overwhelmed, flooded with not just emotion, but questions. What are the differences between cuts and clarity and cushion? And there's so many different questions that you don't know until you ask. But with our friends over at Bucci's Jewelry and Design, they make it a simple process because they treat you like one of one. They want to make sure you get the best shopping process with the least amount of pressure possible. Because listen, popping the question to your special someone, even though you love them and they might say, you think they're going to say yes, it's still a little nerve-wracking, right? If you've been there before, your heart's pounding and you're thinking about a million different things. Take one less pressure off your plate with our friends at Bucci's Jewelry and Design, because they're going to walk you through step by step exactly what you want, and then their team is going to custom design something completely custom in-house, so you don't have to worry about anything. There's no pressure, no pushy sales vibes. It's just good people who love what they do and want to make sure that the purchase that you make is something that you love and something that your partner is going to love. So next time you need the perfect piece, head on over to Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. You can check them out today at BucciJewelers.com and tell them that the guys at PHLY sent you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Andrew Frazier, and you hanging out in the chat. Thanks so much for being here today as we wrap up today's show. Friday, we talked about an article on MLB.com I thought was a really good one from Mike Petriello. And we talked mostly about Kyle Schwarber's part in that article, but Ranger Suárez also appeared a couple of different times. And the headline of the article is "What's available on the free agent market? Check out this menu." And so what Mike did was basically break down different categories, different attributes, different skill sets that each of the free agents kind of have, and say, if you're looking for fill in the blank, here's the best player available. So for example, Kyle Schwarber was the leader in the categories of, if you're looking for the best overall hitter, that was Kyle Schwarber. Smashed baseballs, Kyle Schwarber. Smashed baseballs in the air, Kyle Schwarber. He really led a lot of different statistical categories, and rightfully so. But it wasn't just Schwarber as the Phillies free agents. Ranger Suárez also headlined two spots in this. The first one, Ranger Suárez was listed as the most effective starter available. Now, when you think about the free agent starting pitchers available, there's some really good ones. Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, Shota Imanaga. There's some really good starters that are available. And based on expected ERA, Ranger Suárez is the headliner of this group by a pretty sizable margin. His expected ERA this season was 3.14. The next best was Dylan Cease at 3.43. So his actual ERA, Rangers that is, was a 3.20, which basically tells you the computer thought that Ranger Suárez could have been even a little bit better than he was in 2025 based on his 3.20 ERA. These numbers, the expected numbers that you see, take into account a whole bunch of different stuff, but he really does a good job, which the expected numbers take into account specifically, not just quantity of good, of weak contact allowed, but quality of weak contact allowed, often poor contact that Ranger Suárez is so good at, which kind of plays us into the next category, which was he leads in preventing loud contact. Ranger Suárez, or doesn't lead in, was 8th in preventing loud contact, which another category for Ranger Suárez, which he excelled at, was the average exit velocity and hard hit percentages. So when we mentioned that I'm trying to find it here real quick, when we mentioned the preventing loud contact, he finished 8th in the lowest barrel rates with a minimum of 40 innings pitched at 5.5%. We know that Ranger Suárez is excellent in terms of limiting hard hit contact. It's why he mixes his pitches so well. It's why he keeps hitters off of balance. It's why he's able to generate an average exit velocity of 86.5 miles per hour, which ranks 95th in the 95th percentile across baseball this season. He was excellent in keeping the ball on the ground and in weak contact, bleeders, bloops, soft fly balls right at outfielders and things like that. But the number that Mike takes into consideration is barrel rate, which is where he finished 8th amongst Major League Baseball. There were 7 pitchers ahead of him: Tyler Rogers, Caleb Ferguson, Phil Maton, Gregory Soto, Edwin Diaz, Pete Fairbanks, and Daniel Colon. Andrew, you know what all 7 of those guys have in common that Ranger Suárez does not?
What's that?
All 7 of those guys are relievers. Ranger Suárez is the only starter on this list. Now, you could argue and say, well, if a guy gives up 1 hard hit over 1 inning, it becomes a little more difficult for relievers to change those numbers because they don't throw as many innings. My argument would be the opposite of that. Ranger Suárez pitched the most innings by a lot, and he keeps that hard hit contact down. So here are the numbers for all of those guys in terms of innings pitched compared to what Ranger Suárez had this season. Danny Colon was at 43 innings pitched. Edwin Diaz, 66 and a third. Pete Fairbanks, 60 and a third. Greg Soto, same number, 60 and a third. Phil Maton, 61 and a third. Caleb Ferguson, 65 and a third. Tyler Rogers threw the most innings because it seemed like he was pitching every day for the Mets and even for the Giants before that. 77 and a third innings pitched. Ranger Suárez pitched 157 and a third innings. It's 80 more innings than the next guy on this list. That's 80 innings worth of contact that he has had to battle through to get onto this list. His 31.1% hard hit percentage was 98th percent in baseball. And as I said, his 86.5 average exit velocity was 95th percentile in all of baseball this year. If you're looking for a starter who limits contact and limits hard contact, Ranger Suárez is the guy. Now, I've said this before. I think Ranger Suárez is destined to be somewhere else in 2026. I don't know where it is. I've heard reports about Chicago. I've heard reports about Boston. I've heard reports about Baltimore. Houston could be involved. I think that there are a ton of teams that are going to be interested in Ranger Suárez, and rightfully so, because of all the things that he does well are what you're looking for in a lefty 2 or 3 in your rotation. Limits hard contact, keeps the ball on the ground. When the ball is in the air, it's not hit particularly hard. He doesn't get barreled. He mixes his pitches well. At times, he can throw up to 6 different pitches. That's the type of lefty that you want in your rotation, especially if you can, start a guy who's coming from the right side at 98 the day before and then go to him at 91 the next day. You're really going to screw up different hitters and really make it difficult for opposing offenses. And when Ranger Suárez pitches as effectively as he does, it becomes even more difficult. Last thing today, Andrew. Josh Naylor signs a 5-year contract extension in Seattle to remain with the Mariners. Now, the first thing that tells me is the Mariners are going to spend some money this offseason, which they never seem to do. I just don't know how much money. So when I think about the Mariners in comparison to the Phillies, the name that I wonder if that takes the Mariners out of the equation for is Munetaka Murakami. The Phillies have been linked to him. A lot of teams have been linked to him, but the Phillies have been linked to him. I think the Mariners being in play for Murakami is a good thing because we talked a lot about him, Ethan and I did last week. And the more and more I look at the numbers, power's unquestionable. 56 home runs in a season 1 year, a couple years ago in Japan. 30-plus home runs every season since then. Power's unquestionable. Average exit velocity is off the charts. Hard hit balls off the charts. Swing and miss is equally unquestionable. He whiffs a ton. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm interested. And I think as the weeks progress, I become less interested. The power's there. He's going to hit moonshots when he makes contact. Did you see the stat about his average against fastballs harder than 93 miles an hour?
I did not, no.
He hit 0.95 last year on fastballs 93 miles an hour or more. Obviously, average velo is down in the Japanese league compared to Major League Baseball. That number's not going to get better as he goes to the MLB, where everybody seemingly throws 95 plus.
Unless he works on his timing and all of that stuff, but...
I mean, listen, he's going to hit moonshots at times. There's no question.
Yeah. I
don't know, because here's the thing. If he hits 50, he can hit 200 or 210, and people will be like, well, he hit 50 home runs. It's not an elite batting average, but I'll live with 200 strikeouts if he's going to hit 50 home runs.
Yeah.
If he hits 25 or 30, That's significantly less valuable to a team if they're going to sign him to the big deal that the offseason kind of predicts.
Sure.
I don't necessarily know if I have a ton of interest. Now, again, and Rich points out, like, is there actual smoke to him? I'm not sure in the grand scheme of things they're going to be real players. They've been linked because they're linked to a lot of high-end free agents. I just think his swing and miss stuff is just too great. And I mean great in a bad way. Too great to take a chance with the way that this lineup is currently constructed. I know you need power. I know you're looking desperately to have a legitimate 4-hole hitter. I'm not so sure it's him.
Yeah, I might be on that same feeling as you.
And by the way, he's left-handed.
I like the fact that they're in the market, that they're looking in that market. I think it's a great market to be looking in. I'm just not sure if he is the fit, and I don't want them to be reaching into that market just because they feel it's a necessity to go there and then get burnt by it. You know what I mean? Like,
in 2024, he had 180 strikeouts and 500 at bats.
Yeah,
I have to think that number is going to rise a little bit across Major League pitching.
Of course. I mean, Japanese baseball is great baseball. It's very skillful. There are a lot of great players.
It's the second best league in the world.
There's a lot of great players there. They're all coming. Some of the best players right now in the MLB are from that league.
Sure.
But the MLB is a better league. And if you're not performing there, I'm not so sure you're going to perform here.
Yeah, and so I think, listen, he's going to get a big contract. The power's unquestionable, and I think somebody's going to offer him probably a 4 or 5 year deal that's sizable. I think I would let another team do it. And if he comes out and he ends up being a much better hitter than in terms of like average and swing and miss, and he changes his swing path, then that's great. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so I think that Seattle definitely feels like a player to me. San Diego feels like a player. The Dodgers, obviously.
Well, they're great landing spots for somebody from Japan, right? Because
sure, I think the West Coast is tantalizing.
And it's also because the more Japanese players don't want to come to the East Coast.
Sure.
That's been a big thing with Ohtani. It's been a big thing with, a lot of the guys that have come over. Yamamoto, like, they didn't want to go anywhere further than that because it's easier to travel back to, back to home.
Sure.
So, yeah, of course they're going to be the teams that probably.
Yeah, the West Coast teams make sense. Yeah. I think that I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle doesn't spend. I'm not going to say they're going to spend $300 million, but I think they were on the precipice of a World Series last year. I think they're going to spend some extra money this year. All right, that's going to wrap up today's show. Big thank you to everybody in the chat for hanging out with us. Really appreciate you. A huge thank you to Andrew Frazier for producing and co-hosting today. We will be back on Wednesday at noon to get into more off-season discussion. Maybe we'll have some breaking news over the next couple days. Who knows? I think this is going to be a longer off-season in terms of waiting period for contracts, because I'm curious to see how they are structured with the looming end of the CBA at the end of next season. But we'll talk more about it on Wednesday for the 2026 offseason. We'll play Remember Me as we do each and every Wednesday, and we'll continue to have all of these conversations as the offseason unfolds. Head on over to Philadelphia at 1:30 today. Check out Bill's conversation about the Eagles, I'm sure. Some Flyers talk as well. PHLY Eagles are at 2. The rest of the day is PHLY Flyers at 4, and then the Sixers pre- and post game for tonight's action, 6:30, and then about 9:30 as well. So we'll be back on Wednesday afternoon at noon. Thanks so much for watching the PHLY Phillies podcast. We'll talk to you on Wednesday here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.